Lolo Enki TV.
Session 9. January 27, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of our infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, the healing exercises that you gave us are of such a nature that it is best to concentrate on a particular exercise at a certain time. I would like to ask what exercise that I should concentrate on tonight? Ra, I am Ra. Again, to direct your judgment is an intrusion upon your space-time continuum distortion called future. To speak of past or present within our distortion judgment limits is acceptable. To guide rather than teach learn is not acceptable to our distortion in regards to teach learning. We, instead, can suggest a process whereby each chooses the first of the exercises given in the order in which we gave them, which you, in your discernment, feel is not fully appreciated by your mind-body-spirit complex. This is the proper choice, building from the foundation, making sure the ground is good for the building. We have assessed for you the intensity of this effort in terms of energy expended. You will take this in mind and be patient, for we have not given a short or easy program of consciousness learn teaching. Questioner, the way that I understand the process of evolution is that our planetary population has a certain amount of time to progress. This is generally divided into 3 25,000-year cycles. At the end of 75,000 years the planet progresses itself. What caused this situation to come about with the preciseness of the years in each cycle? Ra, I am Ra. Visualize, if you will, the particular energy which, outward flowing and inward coagulating, formed the tiny realm of the creation governed by your Council of Saturn. Continue seeing the rhythm of this process. The living flow creates a rhythm which is as inevitable as one of your timepieces. Each of your planetary entities began the first cycle when the energy nexus was able in that environment to support such mind-body experiences. Thus, each of your planetary entities is on a different cyclical schedule, as you might call it. The timing of these cycles is a measurement equal to a portion of intelligent energy. This intelligent energy offers a type of clock. The cycles move as precisely as a clock strikes your hour. Thus, the gateway from intelligent energy to intelligent infinity opens regardless of circumstance on the striking of the hour. Questioner, the original, first entities on this planet, what was their origin? Where were they before they were on this planet? Ra, I am Ra. The first entities upon this planet were water, fire, air and earth. Questioner, where did the people who are like us who were the first ones here, where did they come from? From where did they evolve? Ra, I am Ra. You speak of third density experience. The first of those to come here were brought from another planet in your solar system called by you the red planet, Mars. This planet's environment became inhospitable to third density beings. The first entities, therefore, were of this race, as you may call it, manipulated somewhat by those who were guardians at that time. Questioner, what race is that, and how did they get from Mars to here? Ra, I am Ra. The race is a combination of the mind-body-spirit complexes of those of your so-called red planet and a careful series of genetical adjustments made by the guardians of that time. These entities arrived, or were preserved, for the experience upon your sphere by a type of birthing which is non-reproductive, but consists of preparing genetic material for the incarnation of the mind-body-spirit complexes of those entities from the red planet. Questioner, I assume from what you are saying that the guardians transferred the race here after the race had died from the physical as we know it on Mars. Is that correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner, the guardians were obviously acting within an understanding of the law of one in doing this. Can you explain the application of the law of one in this process? Ra, I am Ra. The law of one was named by these guardians as the bringing of the wisdom of the guardians in contact with the entities from the red planet, thus melding the social memory complex of the guardian race and the red planet race. It, however, took an increasing amount of distortion into the application of the law of one from the viewpoint of other guardians, and it is from this beginning action that the quarantine of this planet was instituted. For it was felt that the free will of those of the red planet had been abridged. Questioner, were the entities of the red planet following the law of one prior to leaving the red planet? Ra, I am Ra. The entities of the red planet were attempting to learn the laws of love which form one of the primal distortions of the law of one. However, The tendencies of these people towards bellicose actions caused such difficulties in the atmospheric environment of their planet that it became inhospitable for third density experience before the end of its cycle. Thus, the red planet entities were unharvested and continued in your illusion to attempt to learn the law of love. Questioner: how long ago did this transfer occur from the red planet to Earth? Ra: I am Ra. In your time this transfer occurred approximately 75,000 years ago. Questioner: 75,000 years ago? Ra: I am Ra. This is approximately correct. Questioner: were there any entities of the form that I am now, 2 arms, 2 legs, on this planet before this transfer occurred? Ra: I am Ra. There have been visitors to your sphere at various times for the last 4 million of your years, speaking approximately. These visitors do not affect the cycling of the planetary sphere. It was not third density in its environment until the time previously mentioned. Questioner: then there were second density entities here prior to approximately 75,000 years ago. What type of entities were these? Ra: I am Ra. The second density is the density of the higher plant life and animal life which exists without the upward drive towards the infinite. These second density beings are of an octave of consciousness, just as you find various orientations of consciousness among the conscious entities of your vibration. Questioner: did any of these second density entities have shapes like ours, 2 arms, 2 legs, head, and walk upright on 2 feet? Ra: I am Ra. The 2 higher of the sub-vibrational levels of second density beings had the configuration of the biped, as you mentioned. However, the erectile movement which you experience was not totally affected in these beings who were tending towards the leaning forward, barely leaving the quadrupedal position. Questioner: where did these beings come from? Were they a product of evolution as understood by our scientists? Were they evolved from the original material of the earth that you spoke of? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: do these beings then evolve from second density to third density? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct, although no guarantee can be made of the number of cycles it will take an entity to learn the lessons of consciousness of self which are the prerequisite for transition to third density. Questioner: is there any particular race of people on our planet now who were incarnated here from second density? Ra: I am Ra. There are no second density consciousness complexes here in your sphere at this time. However, there are 2 races which use the second density form. One is the entities from the planetary sphere you call Maltic. These entities are working their understanding complexes through a series of what you would call karmic restitutions. They dwell within your deeper underground passageways and are known to you as Bigfoot. The other race is that being offered a dwelling in this density by guardians who wish to give the mind-body-spirit complexes of those who are of this density at this time appropriately engineered physical vehicles, as you would call these chemical complexes, in the event that there is what you call nuclear war. Questioner: I didn't understand what these vehicles or beings were for that were appropriate in the event of nuclear war. Ra: I am Ra. These are beings which exist as instinctual second density beings which are being held in reserve to form what you would call a gene pool in case these body complexes are needed. These body complexes are greatly able to withstand the rigors of radiation which the body complexes you now inhabit could not do. Questioner: where are these body complexes located? Ra: I am Ra. These body complexes of the second race dwell in uninhabited deep forest. There are many in various places over the surface of your planet. Questioner: are they Bigfoot-type creatures? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct, although we would not call these Bigfoot, as they are scarce and are very able to escape detection. The first race is less able to be aware of proximity of other mind-body-spirit complexes, but these beings are very able to escape due to their technological understandings before their incarnations here. These entities of the glowing eyes are those most familiar to your peoples. Questioner: then there are 2 different types of Bigfoot. Correct? Ra: I am Ra. This will be the final question. There are 3 types of Bigfoot, if you will accept that vibratory sound complex used for 3 such different races of mind-body-spirit complexes. The first 2 we have described. The third is a thought form. Questioner: I would like to ask if there is anything that we can do to aid the instrument's comfort. Ra: I am Ra. This instrument will require some adjustment of the tender portions of her body complex. The distortions are due to the energy center blockage you would call pineal. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai. Session 10. January 27, 1981. Ra: I am Ra. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite Creator. I communicate now. Questioner, I think that it would clarify things for us if we went back to the time just before the transfer of souls from Maldek to see how the Law of One operated with respect to this transfer and why this transfer was necessary. What happened to the people of Maldek that caused them to lose their planet? How long ago did this event occur? Ra, I am Ra. The peoples of Maldek had a civilization somewhat similar to that of the societal complex known to you as Atlantis, in that it gained much technological information and used it without care for the preservation of their sphere, following to a majority extent the complex of thought, ideas, and actions which you may associate with your so-called negative polarity or the service to self. This was, however, for the most part, couched in a sincere belief thought structure which seemed to the perception of the mind-body complexes of this sphere to be positive and of service to others. The devastation that racked their biosphere and caused its disintegration resulted from what you call war. The escalation went to the furthest extent of the technology this social complex had at its disposal in the space-time present of the then time. This time was approximately 705,000 of your years ago. The cycles had begun much earlier upon this sphere due to its relative ability to support the first-dimensional life forms at an earlier point in the space-time continuum of your solar system. These entities were so traumatized by this occurrence that they were in what you may call a social complex knot or tangle of fear. Some of your time passed. No one could reach them. No beings could aid them. Approximately 600,000 of your years ago, the then existing members of the Confederation were able to deploy a social memory complex and untie the knot of fear. The entities were then able to recall that they were conscious. This awareness brought them to the point upon what you would call the lower astral planes, where they could be nurtured until each mind-body-spirit complex was able to finally be healed of this trauma to the extent that each entity was able to examine the distortions it had experienced in the previous life illusion complex. After this experience of learned teaching, the group decision was to place upon itself a type of what you may call karma alleviation. For this purpose, they came into incarnation within your planetary sphere in what were not acceptable human forms. This then they have been experiencing until the distortions of destruction are replaced by distortions towards the desire for a less distorted vision of service to others. Since this was the conscious decision of the great majority of those beings in the Maldek experience, the transition to this planet began approximately 500,000 of your years ago, and the type of body complex available at that time was used. Questioner, was the body complex available at that time what we refer to as the ape body? Ra, I am Ra. That is correct. Questioner, have any of the Maldek entities transformed since then? Are they still second density now, or are some of them third density? Ra, I am Ra. The consciousness of these entities has always been third density. The alleviation mechanism was designed by the placement of this consciousness in second-dimensional physical-chemical complexes which are not able to be dexterous or manipulative to the extent which is appropriate to the working of the third density. Distortions of the mind complex. Questioner, have any of the entities moved on now, made a graduation at the end of a cycle, and made the transition from second-density bodies to third-density bodies? Ra, I am Ra. Many of these entities were able to remove the accumulation of what you call karma, thus being able to accept a third-density cycle within a third-density body. Most of those beings so succeeding have incarnated elsewhere in the creation for the succeeding cycle in third density. As this planet reached third density, some few of these entities became able to join the vibration of this sphere in third density form. There remain a few who have not yet alleviated through the mind-body-spirit coordination of distortions the previous action taken by them. Therefore, they remain. Questioner, are these the Bigfoot that you spoke of? Ra, I am Ra. These are one type of Bigfoot. Questioner, Tihen, our human race is formed of a few who originally came from Maldek and quite a few who came from Mars. Are there entities here from other places? Ra, I am Ra. There are entities experiencing your time-space continuum who have originated from many, many places, as you would call them, in the creation, for when there is a cycle change, those who must repeat then find a planetary sphere appropriate for this repetition. It is somewhat unusual for a planetary mind-body-spirit complex to contain those from many, many various loci, but this explains much, for, you see, you are experiencing the third dimension occurrence with a large number of those who must repeat the cycle. The orientation, thus, has been difficult to unify even with the aid of many of your teach-learners. Questioner, when Maldek was destroyed, did all the people of Maldek have the fear problem, or were some advanced enough to transfer to other planets? Ra, I am Ra. In the occurrence of planetary dissolution, none escaped. for this is an action which redounds to the social complex of the planetary complex itself. None escape the knot or tangle. Questioner, is there any danger of this happening to Earth at this time? Ra, I am Ra. We feel this evaluation of your planetary mind-body-spirit complex is your own duty. Questioner, when graduation occurs at the end of a cycle, and entities are moved from one planet to another, by what means do they go to a new planet? Ra, I am Ra. In the scheme of the Creator, the first step of the mind-body-spirit totality beingness is to place its mind-body-spirit complex distortion in the proper place of love-light. This is done to ensure proper healing of the complex and eventual attunement with the totality beingness complex. This takes a very variable length of your time-space. After this is accomplished, the experience of the cycle is dissolved and filtered until only the distillation of distortions in its pure form remains. At this time, the harvested mind-body-spirit totality beingness evaluates the density needs of its beingness and chooses the more appropriate new environment for either a repetition of the cycle or a moving forward into the next cycle. This is the manner of the harvesting, guarded and watched over by many. Questioner, when the entity is moved from one planet to the next, is he moved in thought or by a vehicle? Ra, I am Ra. The mind-body-spirit totality beingness is one with the Creator. There is no time-space distortion. Therefore, it is a matter of thinking the proper locus in the infinite array of time-spaces. Questioner, while an entity is incarnate in this third density at this time, he may either learn unconsciously without knowing what he is learning, or he may learn after he is consciously aware that he is learning in the ways of the law of one. By the second way of learning consciously, it is possible for the entity to greatly accelerate his growth. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner, then although many entities are not consciously aware of it, what they really desire is to accelerate their growth, and it is their job to discover this while they are incarnate. Is it correct that they can accelerate their growth much more while in the third density than in between incarnations of this density? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. We shall attempt to speak upon this concept. The law of one has as one of its primal distortions the free will distortion, thus each entity is free to accept, reject, or ignore the mind-body-spirit complexes about it and ignore the creation itself. There are many among your social memory complex distortion who, at this time-space, engage daily, as you would put it, in the working upon the law of one in one of its primal distortions, that is, the ways of love. However, if this same entity, being biased from the depths of its mind-body-spirit complex towards love-light, were then to accept the responsibility for each moment of the time-space accumulation of present moments available to it, such an entity can empower its progress in much the same way as we describe the empowering of the call of your social complex distortion to the Confederation. Questioner, could you state this in a little different way how you empower this call? Ra, I am Ra. We understand you to speak now of our previous information. The call begins with 1. This call is equal to infinity and is not, as you would say, counted. It is the cornerstone. The second call is added. The third call empowers or doubles the second, and so forth, each additional calling doubling or granting power to all the preceding calls. Thus, the call of many of your peoples is many, many-powered and overwhelmingly heard to the infinite reaches of the one creation. Questioner, for the general development of the reader of this book, could you state some of the practices or exercises to perform to produce an acceleration toward the law of one? Ra, I am Ra. Exercise 1. This is the most nearly centered and usable within your illusion complex. The moment contains love. That is the lesson goal of this illusion or density. The exercise is to consciously see that love in awareness and understanding distortions. The first attempt is the cornerstone. Upon this choosing rests the remainder of the life experience of an entity. The second seeking of love within the moment begins the addition. The third seeking empowers the second, the fourth powering or doubling the third. As with the previous type of empowerment, there will be some loss of power due to flaws within the seeking and the distortion of insincerity. However, the conscious statement of self to self of the desire to seek love is so central and active will that, as before, the loss of power due to this friction is inconsequential. Exercise 2. The universe is one being. When a mind-body-spirit complex views another mind-body-spirit complex, see the Creator. This is an helpful exercise. Exercise 3. Gaze within a mirror. See the Creator. Exercise 4. Gaze at the creation which lies about the mind-body-spirit complex of each entity. See the Creator. The foundation or prerequisite of these exercises is a predilection towards what may be called meditation, contemplation, or prayer. With this attitude, these exercises can be processed. Without it, the data will not sink down into the roots of the tree of mind, thus enabling and ennobling the body and touching the spirit. Questioner: I was wondering about the advent of the civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria, when these civilizations occurred, and where did they come from? Ra: I am Ra. This is the last question of this working. The civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria were not one but two. Let us look first at the Mu entities. They were beings of a somewhat primitive nature, but those who had very advanced spiritual distortions. The civilization was part of this cycle, experienced early within the cycle at a time of approximately 53,000 of your years ago. It was an helpful and harmless place which was washed beneath the ocean during a readjustment of your sphere's tectonic plates through no action of their own. They sent out those who survived and reached many places in what you call Russia, North America, and South America. The Indians of whom you come to feel some sympathy in your social complex distortions are the descendants of these entities. Like the other incarnates of this cycle, they came from elsewhere. However, these particular entities were largely from a second-density planet which had some difficulty, due to the age of its sun, in achieving third-density life conditions. This planet was from the galaxy Deneb. The Atlantean race was a very conglomerate social complex which began to form approximately 31,000 years in the past of your space-time continuum illusion. It was a slow-growing and very agrarian one until approximately 15,000 of your years ago. It reached quickly a high technological understanding which caused it to be able to use intelligent infinity in an informative manner. We may add that they used intelligent energy as well, manipulating greatly the natural influxes of the indigo or pineal ray from divine or infinite energy. Thus, they were able to create life forms. This they began to do instead of healing and perfecting their own mind-body-spirit complexes, turning their distortions towards what you may call negative. Approximately 11,000 of your years ago, the first three of the positively oriented of the Atlantean groups left this geographical locus before that devastation, placing themselves in the mountain areas of what you call Tibet, what you call Peru, and what you call Turkey. Do you have any brief questions before we close this meeting? Questioner: Only one. Other than what we can do to make the instrument more comfortable, I would like to have your definition of galaxy, the word galaxy as you have used it. Ra: I am Ra. We use the term known to your people by the sound vibration. Galaxy. We accept that some galaxies contain one system of planetary and solar groups. Others contain several. However, the importance of the locus in infinite time-space dimensionality is so little that we accept the distortion implicit in such an ambiguous term. Questioner: Then the 9 planets and sun which we have here in our system, would you refer to that as a galaxy? Ra: I am Ra. We would not. Questioner: How many stars would be, approximately, in a galaxy? Ra: I am Ra. It depends upon the galactic system. Your own, as you know, contains many, millions of planetary entities and star bodies. Questioner: I was just trying to get to the definition that you were using for galaxy. You mentioned a couple of times the term galaxy in reference to what we call a planetary system and it was causing some confusion. Is there any way that we can make the instrument more comfortable? Ra: I am Ra. This instrument could be made somewhat more comfortable if more support were given the body complex. Other than this, we can only repeat the request to carefully align the symbols used to facilitate this instrument's balance. Our contact is narrow-banded and thus the influx brought in with us must be precise. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and peace of the one Creator. Adonai. Session 11. January 28, 1981. Ra: I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite Creator. I communicate now. Questioner: Should we include the ritual that you have suggested that we use to call you in the book that will result from these sessions? Ra: I am Ra. This matter is of small importance for our suggestion was made for the purpose of establishing contact through this instrument with this group. Questioner: Is it of any assistance to the instrument to have name and name present during these sessions? Does the number in the group make any difference in these sessions? Ra: I am Ra. The most important of the entities are the questioner and the vibratory sound complex, name. The 2 entities' additional 80 instruments comfort by energizing the instrument with their abilities to share the physical energy complex which is a portion of your love vibration. Questioner: You said yesterday that Maldek was destroyed due to warfare. If Maldek hadn't destroyed itself due to warfare, would it have become a planet that evolved in self-service, and would the entities involved have increased in density? And gone on to say the fourth density in the negative sense, or the sense of self-service? Ra, I am Ra. The planetary social memory complex, Maldek, had in common with your own sphere the situation of a mixture of energy direction. Thus it, though unknown, would most probably have been a mixed harvest, a few moving to fourth density, a few moving towards fourth density in service to self, the great majority repeating third density. This is approximate due to the fact that parallel possibility-probability vortices cease when action occurs and new probability-possibility vortices are begun. Questioner, is there a planet opposite our Sun, in relation to us, that we do not know about? Ra, I am Ra. There is a sphere in the area opposite your Sun of a very, very cold nature, but large enough to skew certain statistical figures. This sphere should not properly be called a planet as it is locked in first density. Questioner, you say that entities from Maldek might go to fourth density negative. Are there people who go out of our present third density to places, in the universe and serve, which are fourth density self-service negative type of planets? Ra, I am Ra. Your question is unclear. Please restate. Questioner, as our cycle ends and graduation occurs, is it possible for anyone to go from our third density to a fourth density planet that is of a self-service or negative type? Ra, I am Ra. We grasp now the specificity of your query. In this harvest, the probability-possibility vortexes and harvest, though small, of this type. That is correct. Questioner, can you tell us what happened to Adolf Hitler? Ra, I am Ra. The mind-body-spirit complex known as Adolf is at this time in a healing process in the middle astral planes of your spherical force field. This entity was greatly confused and, although aware of the circumstance of change in vibratory level associated with the cessation of the chemical body complex, nevertheless, needed a great deal of care. Questioner, is there anyone in our history who is commonly known who went to a fourth density self-service or negative type of planet, or any who will go there? Ra, I am Ra. The number of entities thus harvested is small. However, a few have penetrated the 8th level, which is only available from the opening up of the 7th through the 6th. Penetration into the 8th or intelligent infinity level allows a mind-body-spirit complex to be harvested if it wishes at any time space during the cycle. Questioner, are any of these people known in the history of our planet by name? Ra, I am Ra. We will mention a few. The one known as Taras Bulba, the one known as Genghis Khan, the one known as Rasputin. Questioner, how did they accomplish this? What was necessary for them to accomplish this? Ra, I am Ra. All of the aforementioned entities were aware, through memory, of Atlantean understandings having to do with the use of the various centers of mind-body-spirit complex energy influx in attaining the gateway to intelligent infinity. Questioner, did this enable them to do what we refer to as magic? Could they do paranormal things while they were incarnate? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. The first two entities mentioned made little use of these abilities consciously. However, they were bent single-mindedly upon service to self, sparing no efforts in personal discipline to double, redouble and so empower this gateway. The third was a conscious adept and also spared no effort in the pursuit of service to self. Questioner, where are these three entities now? Ra, I am Ra. These entities are in the dimension known to you as fourth. Therefore the space-time continua are not compatible. An approximation of the space-time locus of each would net no actual understanding. Each chose a fourth density planet which was dedicated to the pursuit of the understanding of the law of one through service to self, one in what you know as the Orion Group, one in what you know as Cassiopeia, one in what you know as Southern Cross. However, these loci are not satisfactory. We do not have vocabulary for the geometric calculations necessary for transfer of this understanding to you. Questioner, who went to the Orion Group? Ra, I am Ra. The one known as Genghis Khan. Questioner, what does he presently do there? What is his job or occupation? Ra, I am Ra. This entity serves the Creator in its own way. Questioner, is it impossible for you to tell us precisely how he does this service? Ra, I am Ra. It is possible for us to speak to this query. However, we use any chance we may have to reiterate the basic understanding learning that all beings serve the Creator. The one you speak of as Genghis Khan, at present, is incarnate in a physical light body which has the work of disseminating material of thought control to those who are what you may call crusaders. He is, as you would term this entity, a shipping clerk. Questioner, what do the crusaders do? Ra, I am Ra. The Crusaders move in their chariots to conquer planetary mind-body-spirit social complexes before they reach the stage of achieving social memory. Questioner: at what stage does a planet achieve social memory? Ra: I am Ra. A mind-body-spirit social complex becomes a social memory complex when its entire group of entities are of one orientation or seeking. The group memory lost to the individuals in the roots of the tree of mind then becomes known to the social complex, thus creating a social memory complex. The advantages of this complex are the relative lack of distortion in understanding the social beingness and the relative lack of distortion in pursuing the direction of seeking. For all understanding, distortions are available to the entities of the society. Questioner: then we have Crusaders from Orion coming to this planet for mind control purposes. How do they do this? Ra: I am Ra. As all, they follow the law of one observing free will. Contact is made with those who call. Those then upon the planetary sphere act much as do you to disseminate the attitudes and philosophy of their particular understanding of the law of one, which is service to self. These become the elite. In this way you may discern for yourself this information. We shall not interfere with the, shall we say, planetary game. It is not central to the harvest. Questioner: how do the Crusaders pass on their concepts to the individuals on Earth? Ra: I am Ra. There are two main ways, just as there are two main ways of, shall we say, polarizing towards service to others. There are those mind-body-spirit complexes upon your plane who do exercises and perform disciplines in order to seek contact with sources of information and power leading to the opening of the gate to intelligent infinity. There are others whose vibratory complex is such that this gateway is opened and contact with total service to self with its primal distortion of manipulation of others is then afforded with little or no difficulty, no training, and no control. Questioner: what type of information is passed on from the Crusaders to these people? Ra: I am Ra. The Orion group passes on information concerning the law of one with the orientation of service to self. The information can become technical, just as some in the Confederation, in attempts to aid this planet in service to others, have provided what you would call technical information. The technology provided by this group is in the form of various means of control or manipulation of others to serve the self. Questioner: do you mean to say then that some scientists receive technical information, shall we say, telepathically, that comes out then as usable gadgetry? Ra: I am Ra. That is correct. However, very positively, as you would call this distortion. Oriented scientists have received information intended to unlock peaceful means of progress which redounded unto the last echoes of potential destruction due to further reception of other scientists of a negative orientation distortion. Questioner: is this how we learn of nuclear energy? Was it mixed with both positive and negative orientation? Ra: I am Ra. That is correct. The entities responsible for the gathering of the scientists were of a mixed orientation. The scientists were overwhelmingly positive in their orientation. The scientists who followed their work were of mixed orientation, including one extremely negative entity, as you would term it. Questioner: is this extremely negative entity still incarnate on Earth? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: then I would assume that you can't name him. So I will ask you where Nikola Tesla got his information? Ra: I am Ra. The one known as Nikola received information from Confederation sources desirous of aiding this extremely, shall we say, angelically positive entity in bettering the existence of its fellow mind-body-spirit complexes. It is unfortunate, shall we say, that like many wanderers the vibratory distortions of third-density illusion caused this entity to become extremely distorted in its perceptions of its fellow mind-body-spirit complexes so that its mission was hindered and in the result, perverted from its purposes. Questioner: how was Tesla's work supposed to benefit man on Earth, and what were its purposes? Ra: I am Ra. The most desired purpose of the mind-body-spirit complex, Nikola, was the freeing of all planetary entities from the darkness. Thus, it attempted to give to the planet the infinite energy of the planetary sphere for use in lighting and power. Questioner: by freeing the planetary entities from darkness, precisely what do you mean? Ra: I am Ra. Most of the following answer was lost due to tape recorder malfunction. The core of the response was as follows: we spoke of freeing people from darkness in a literal sense. Questioner: would this freeing from darkness be commensurate with the law of one, or does this have any real product? Ra: I am Ra. The product of such a freeing would create two experiences. Firstly, the experience of no need to find the necessary emolument for payment, in your money, for energy. Secondly, the leisure afforded, thereby exemplifying the possibility and enhancing the probability of the freedom to then search the self, the beginning of seeking the law of one. Few there are working physically from daybreak to darkness, as you name them, upon your plane who can contemplate the law of one in a conscious fashion. Questioner, what about the Industrial Revolution in general? Was this planned in any way? Ra, I am Ra. This will be the final question of this session. That is correct. Wanderers incarnated in several waves, as you may call them, in order to bring into existence the gradual freeing from the demands of the diurnal cycles and lack of freedom of leisure. Questioner, that was the last question, so I will do as usual and ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? Ra, I am Ra. You are doing well. The most important thing is to carefully align the symbols. The adjustment made this particular time-space present will aid this instrument's physical complex in the distortion towards comfort. May we ask if you have any short questions which we may resolve before closing the session? Questioner, I don't know if this is a short question or not, so we can save it till next time, but my question is, why do the Crusaders from Orion do this? What is their ultimate objective? This is probably too long to answer. Ra, I am Ra. This is not too long to answer. To serve the self is to serve all. The service of the self, when seen in this perspective, requires an ever-expanding use of the energies of others for manipulation to the benefit of the self with distortion towards power. If there are further queries to further explicate this subject, we shall be with you again. Questioner, there was one thing that I forgot. Is it possible to have another session later on today? Ra, I am Ra. It is well. Questioner, thank you. Ra, I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai.